You know what hurts more than physical pain? It's when someone who shares your blood looks at you like a stranger. Like your presence is an inconvenience. Like your grief is too messy for their curated grief performance. That's how it felt at my mother's funeral. I stood in black at the edge of the chapel, hands folded, heart cracked, watching my sister glide from guest to guest like the host of some grand event. Her dress was designer. Her tears were well-timed. Her voice never wavered. She looked like the grieving daughter everyone expected. Perfect, poised, the one who had done everything right. And me? I was the shadow in the corner. She didn't even leave a seat for me in the front row. I had flown in on a red-eye after sitting with Mom in hospice for weeks. But when the day finally came, Rachel took charge of everything. The service, the obituary, the eulogy. My name was misspelled in the program. I wasn't asked to speak. I wasn't even asked where I thought Mom might want to be buried. It was as if my entire relationship with our mother had been erased, rewritten under Rachel's authorship. And maybe that's what she always wanted. After the service, as people milled around and swapped stories over white wine and finger sandwiches, I stood by the photo board Rachel had arranged. I wasn't in a single picture, not one. Not the one of me reading to Mom when she was recovering from her first surgery. Not the photo from the mother-daughter road trip we took when Rachel bailed at the last minute. Not the snapshot of us planting daffodils by the porch, her favorite. Instead, it was all Rachel. Rachel and Mom on vacation. Rachel and Mom at brunch. Rachel and Mom laughing, linked arm in arm. I didn't cry. I'd done all my crying when no one was watching. I simply walked outside into the cold November air, trying to remember how to breathe. That's when he approached me, Mr. Lennox, the family lawyer. He was in his 60s, white hair combed back, eyes kind behind his thick glasses. He looked hesitant, almost guilty, like he'd been carrying something heavy. "Claire," he said quietly, "I need to speak with you. Privately." I blinked. "Is everything okay?" He glanced over his shoulder, back toward the crowd inside. "Your mother left something only for you." My heart thudded. "What kind of something?" "A letter and a document. It's in my office. She gave it to me 6 months ago with specific instructions." I swallowed hard. The pain in my chest shifted. No longer just grief, but something else now. Tension. Suspicion. Why didn't she tell me? He looked me in the eye. Because she knew Rachel would never let it reach you if she did. For a moment, I couldn't speak. In the distance, I heard Rachel laugh. Loud, carefree, floating through the chapel doors. She was probably retelling the story of the time she bought Mom that pearl necklace for her birthday, conveniently leaving out that it was my idea. I turned back to Mr. Lennox. "Can I come by tomorrow?" He nodded. "Please do. There's more than just a letter, Claire. There's something else, something that might change things." He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. Because in that moment, I felt it, that deep, undeniable knowing in my gut. Rachel hadn't just stolen the spotlight. She hadn't just erased me from the photos, the program, the story. She had taken more. And whatever Mom left with Mr. Lennox, it was about to bring everything into the light. If you've ever been quietly pushed aside by someone who smiles in your face and stabs you in the back, you'll understand why I needed to know the truth. So, before I tell you what was in that envelope, take a breath. Subscribe to the channel if these stories speak to you. Like, comment, and tell me, where in the world are you listening from? And what time is it for you right now? Now, let's listen to my story journey. Growing up, if you had looked in from the outside, you would have assumed Rachel was the golden girl and I was just the other one. She was 2 years older, louder, shinier. She got the lead in the school play, straight A's with minimal effort, and a car for her 16th birthday. When she walked into a room, people noticed. When I walked in, people asked if I was her cousin. But it wasn't always like that. Not in the beginning. As little girls, we were close. We used to build blanket forts together, steal cookie dough from the fridge, and fight over who got to sit in Mom's lap. Back then, I thought we were a team. But somewhere along the line, Around middle school, I think, things changed. Rachel realized she could get more by keeping me small. That every compliment she received felt bigger if I stayed quiet. That our parents, especially Mom, were more impressed with polished success than with quiet loyalty. I became the helper. The one who always set the table. The one who gave up the last slice. The one who did extra chores without being asked. I wasn't punished. I just wasn't praised either. I disappeared into the background, and Rachel stepped into the light. And Mom, well, she didn't see it. Or maybe she did, and she just didn't want to deal with it. There was always a quiet ache in the way she'd brush my hair and say, "Claire, I need you to be the strong one." She said it when Dad left. She said it when Rachel failed algebra, and I tutored her every night for 2 months. She said it when our dog died, and I was the one who stayed up comforting Rachel while Mom cried in her room. Be strong, be calm, be patient. That became my role, and Rachel, she could be emotional. She could slam doors, throw tantrums, and break things, and somehow still be the daughter Mom admired most. It wasn't outright favoritism. Not always. But it was death by 1,000 small dismissals. College was when I started to notice the cracks in Rachel's facade. She moved back home 3 times in 4 years, racking up credit card debt, abandoning majors, and dating men who treated her like an accessory. Meanwhile, I worked 2 jobs to stay enrolled, graduated early, and got a job in finance. Mom never visited me on campus. She said Rachel needed her more. Even when I moved back to town after college, I remained the background daughter. I helped with groceries. I took Mom to her doctor appointments. I mowed the lawn when Rachel forgot. But when Christmas came, Rachel got the necklace. I got a scented candle. When Mom was diagnosed with cancer, I didn't even hesitate. I arranged my schedule, moved in part-time to help with her care, coordinated her medications and doctor visits. Rachel showed up with lattes and posted selfies of herself being a good daughter at the hospital. And yet, people praised her for being so devoted. I didn't speak up. I just kept showing up. That's the thing about being the quiet one. You're easy to forget, until you're the only one left standing. When Mom's health declined, Rachel started dropping hints about the house. Mom always said she'd leave it to me, she said one evening, swirling a glass of Pinot while I folded Mom's laundry. She knew I'd keep it in the family. I didn't argue. I didn't remind her that I had paid off Mom's second mortgage 2 years ago, when Rachel's business venture went under. That I'd been covering half the bills for months. That I was the one keeping things afloat while she curated her image. I just nodded, and when Mom passed, Rachel swooped in like it had all been decided. She coordinated the funeral, called the relatives, ordered the casket. She told people I was too grief-stricken to help, when really, she never even asked. So when she announced that the will would be read in front of everyone, friends, extended family, even her new boyfriend, I wasn't surprised. Rachel had always loved an audience. But what I didn't know, what she didn't know, was that Mom had kept one final secret. A secret that was waiting for me. Quietly and without fanfare. In a sealed envelope behind Mr. Lennox's locked file cabinet. And that envelope was about to change everything. The will reading wasn't held at the lawyer's office, like normal people might do it. No, Rachel rented out a private room at a country club. There were linen tablecloths, finger sandwiches, mimosas. She wore pearls and a silk blouse like she was hosting a baby shower. I walked in 10 minutes early, but the room was already half full. Cousins, neighbors, a few of Mom's old friends from church. Rachel stood near the front, gesturing animatedly to a group of women. When she spotted me, her smile faltered for a moment, then returned with twice the force. "Claire," she cooed, "you made it." I offered a tight smile and nodded. "Of course I did. It's Mom's will." "Of course." She turned to the others. "My sister's always been the dependable one." There was a faint chuckle, and I felt heat rise to my face. It wasn't the words, it was the way she said it. Like dependability was a punchline. I sat in the back. Rachel made no effort to introduce me. 10 minutes later, Mr. Lennox arrived. briefcase in hand, and everyone took their seats. He looked tired, but composed. He made a few remarks about our mother's generosity and character, then opened the folder with the will. And then Rachel stood up, completely unprompted. "If I may," she said brightly. Mom and I had talked many times about her wishes. We were very close. She even let me review the draft before it was finalized. Mr. Lennox hesitated. "Ms. Sinclair, the will is—" Rachel smiled, waving a dismissive hand. I know. I won't speak for long. I just think everyone should hear how much this meant to her." Then she began reading. She read Mom's words aloud like a monologue, every line that praised her, every sentence that listed assets bequeathed to my beloved daughter Rachel. The house, the savings account, the jewelry, even the china cabinet. I sat there, frozen. There wasn't a single mention of me, not even a sentence. Rachel paused dramatically at the end, eyes shimmering with carefully rehearsed tears. She wanted me to keep the house in the family. I'm so honored. People clapped. A few guests cast me sympathetic glances. Some avoided eye contact altogether. Rachel stepped down, beaming as if she had just delivered a wedding toast. Mr. Lennox cleared his throat. "There is one more matter to discuss." Rachel's head snapped toward him. I thought that was the final version. He met her gaze evenly. "That was the most recent will on file. Until last week." A murmur spread across the room. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a manila envelope. "Your mother delivered this to me 6 months ago. It was handwritten, notarized, and placed under seal per her instructions. She asked me not to disclose it until today." Rachel's mouth fell open. "What?" "She told me it was for Claire, that it clarified her true intentions regarding the estate." The room went completely still. He unfolded the document slowly, carefully. Rachel took a step forward. "That's not legal. You can't just—" "I assure you, it's entirely legal," Mr. Lennox said calmly. "We'll allow everyone to read it after this. But first, I'll summarize the key changes." Rachel's eyes narrowed. "This is absurd." He ignored her. "Per this updated will, the estate is to be divided equally between Rachel Sinclair and Claire Sinclair. The house is to be sold, and the proceeds split. The savings accounts are to be distributed evenly. The jewelry, in part, is to go to Claire, as well as the contents of a private safety deposit box. Key to be provided." I couldn't breathe. Mr. Lennox looked directly at me. "Claire, your mother also wrote a letter to accompany this will. You may read it when you're ready." Rachel turned red. "This is a joke. She wouldn't— This doesn't make any sense. She told me she wanted me to have everything." Mr. Lennox didn't flinch. She changed her mind. "She was sick. She wasn't thinking clearly. This is probably fraudulent. I'll contest it. You're welcome to pursue that, but you should know—" He removed a USB drive from his folder. "There's a video message recorded at the notary's office. Your mother was perfectly lucid." Rachel's face collapsed. The room buzzed with whispers now. The guests were stunned. A few looked embarrassed, others intrigued. Rachel was trembling. "No," she said hoarsely. "She wouldn't do this to me. She wouldn't—" She turned to me like I had orchestrated it. "What did you do?" I stood slowly, my voice steady. "I buried her. I held her hand while you were in Cabo." Gasps. Mr. Lennox stepped between us. "Ladies, we'll finish the legal proceedings in private. Everyone else, thank you for attending." People began filing out, awkward glances, hushed murmurs. Someone patted my shoulder. Rachel didn't move. She just stood there, mouth open, still processing the fact that the story she had built, the one where I didn't matter, had just crumbled in front of an entire room. And I, the forgotten daughter, had just been written back into history. I didn't sleep that night. Not from anger, not from excitement. It was something else. A strange, humming quiet that moved through my body like an aftershock, as if my nervous system hadn't caught up to the truth yet. Mom hadn't forgotten me. That thought looped over and over in my mind as I sat at the kitchen table, wrapped in an old flannel blanket, the letter from Mr. Lennox still unopened in front of me. It was sealed with a piece of gold wax, stamped with the letter S. Mom's monogram. She'd used it on every Christmas card, every thank you note, every birthday letter she ever wrote me. It was her signature, elegant, specific, entirely hers. My hands trembled slightly as I broke the seal. Inside was a folded page. Her handwriting was unmistakable. Slanted, small, looped with restraint but warmth. Claire, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And if Lennox did his job right, you're also probably stunned right now. I imagine your sister is too. I wish I had the courage to say this to your face, but I didn't want you to feel burdened by the weight of my regrets. You were always my steady one, my silent guardian, the daughter who asked for so little and gave so much. And I let that be enough. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I saw the way Rachel took, and I let her. I saw you make yourself smaller, and I let that happen too. I was scared. She needed so much. You needed so little. But I was wrong. You deserved more. Not just of me, but of the life you built with your own 2 hands. This new will is my attempt to put things right. You are my daughter, my equal, and I love you just as much as I love her. I had to stop reading. My breath caught in my throat, and my vision blurred. For all the years, I doubted, questioned, buried my worth beneath Rachel's spotlight. Mom had seen me. She just hadn't known how to say it until now. The next day, I returned to Mr. Lennox's office for the legal follow-up. He was kind but professional, explaining how the revised will had been prepared meticulously. She came to me quietly, he said. Didn't want to cause conflict, but she was deeply bothered by what she'd witnessed, how you were being treated. He slid a small black key across the desk. This belongs to you. It's for the safety deposit box your mother opened 3 months before she passed. She kept it private, only mentioned it in the addendum. The key was smooth, cold, and heavier than I expected. I slipped it into my pocket without saying a word. Outside the office, Rachel was waiting. Her sunglasses hid her eyes, but the rest of her face was tight. Her lips pressed so hard they'd gone colorless. When she saw me, she marched up fast, fury vibrating off her like static. "What did you do to her?" she hissed. I blinked. "Excuse me?" "You poisoned her against me. That's the only explanation. You manipulated her when she was dying. You made her doubt me." "No, Rachel," I said quietly. "You did that all by yourself." She laughed, short and sharp. "This isn't over. I have lawyers, connections. You think a handwritten will is going to hold up in court?" She notarized it. She video recorded it. And she left a paper trail. "You think she didn't plan for this?" Rachel's face cracked, just a flicker. But I saw it. Doubt, realization. She knew Mom had outmaneuvered her. "You've always been jealous," she snapped. "I was the one who stayed close, the one she trusted." "Really?" I tilted my head. "Then why did she lock the truth in a vault and leave the key to me?" Rachel's jaw tightened. She was confused. She was on medication. She was clear enough to write a will and film a message. I leaned in slightly. And she was clear enough to know the difference between someone who loved her and someone who loved her attention. Rachel stood frozen, trembling with rage. But this time, no one was around to clap. No one to validate her pain with performative concern. No one to hand her a tissue and whisper, "She's just upset." She was alone with her fury. And I didn't feel small anymore. I left her standing there on the sidewalk, her breath coming in shallow, little huffs, her world beginning to splinter around her. At the bank that afternoon, the safety deposit clerk led me to a small gray room. The walls were sterile, the lighting soft. The air smelled like metal and paper. I opened the box with a strange reverence. Inside was a stack of envelopes, a velvet pouch, and a brown leather-bound journal with the initials MS stamped in gold. There was also a note, "Start with the red envelope." I picked it up. And as I peeled back the flap and read what my mother had left me, I realized this story, my story, wasn't about revenge. It was about finally being seen. I opened the red envelope slowly, unsure of what I'd find inside. It wasn't money or legal instructions. It was a list, handwritten in Mom's careful script, with dates, dollar amounts, and descriptions. It started 10 years ago and continued all the way to 6 months before she passed. April 2013, $12,000, Rachel. Boutique investment, failed June 2014. $3,200, Rachel. Car insurance paid off. October 2015, $28,000, Rachel. Credit card consolidation. The list went on for pages. Tens of thousands of dollars. Quietly given, silently accepted, never repaid. Near the bottom of the final page was a simple line, in bold, total Rachel has received. Loans, jar, gifts, not repaid. $196,080. Below that, another line, total Claire has received $0. Always insisted on earning it herself. I sat back in the little vault room, that cold metal box still open in front of me, and let the reality wash over me. Mom had known. She hadn't been blind to Rachel's manipulation. She'd just been afraid to confront it. Or maybe, like so many mothers, she had convinced herself that love looked like fixing things, even if it meant rewarding bad behavior. But in the end, she had kept the receipts. Literally. There were copies of wire transfers, checks, and bank withdrawals, each clipped neatly behind the list. Proof that Rachel had quietly drained Mom over the years while I was out there taking side jobs, skimping on my own needs to make sure Mom never went without. And there, beside the list, was the brown leather journal. I opened it. It wasn't a diary. It was a log, a detailed, methodical account of what Mom had witnessed over the past 2 years. Mom chronicled the doctor visits I had taken her to, the nights I had slept beside her hospital bed, the bills I'd handled without complaint. And she also recorded Rachel's absences, her excuses, the fake tears, the photo ops. And then I found this entry dated just 4 months before her death. Rachel came by again today. She brought croissants, posted a photo, and left after 10 minutes. Claire stayed until midnight, paid the electric bill without saying a word. How did I not see it all these years? Another entry, more raw. I'm afraid, not of dying, of what I've left behind. I created this monster dynamic. I let Claire carry the burden in silence. I need to make it right. My throat tightened. I didn't realize I was crying until a tear slipped onto the page and blurred the ink. In the bottom of the box was the velvet pouch. Inside, wrapped in the soft cloth, was Mom's antique ring, the one she had promised to leave to Rachel years ago. There was a note attached. She doesn't deserve this. It's yours. You earned it. Love. Always. Mom. The weight of that tiny ring felt heavier than gold. I walked out of the bank, dazed, the pouch clenched in my hand like a talisman. The sun was low in the sky now, casting gold streaks over the sidewalk, but the warmth didn't reach me. What I felt instead was clarity. Rachel had built a kingdom on perception. The good daughter, the favorite, the face of our family. But Mom had seen through the mask in the end. She had peeled it back and seen the truth. My truth. That night, I sat on my porch with a glass of wine and read the journal cover to cover. I didn't rush. I let every entry wash over me, every word she'd left behind. Not just as a record of what she saw, but as a bridge between us. She had finally spoken the words she never said aloud. And they healed something I didn't know was still bleeding. But I also knew something else now. Rachel would never let this go quietly. When the new will was filed with the court, I received the first email from her lawyer, challenging the validity, claiming undue influence, demanding mediation. I didn't flinch. I sent the list, the bank records, the notarized will, the journal entries, and the video file of Mom's testimony. And I added a handwritten note, "See you in court." Rachel lost control of the narrative the day that second will was unsealed. But what she didn't know yet, what was still coming, was the final, brutal piece of the story Mom had left behind. And it was going to make her scream. The hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in early spring. The kind of morning where the air still bites a little, but the sun promises change. I wore a navy pantsuit, simple, clean, unapologetic. My attorney, Ava Linden, met me on the courthouse steps. "Ready?" she asked. I took a breath, square in my chest. More than ever. Rachel arrived 10 minutes late. She looked small, not physically. She was still tall, still had that air of forced confidence she used to wear like armor. But her clothes didn't fit right anymore. Her shoes looked worn, and her eyes, those eyes I once loved as a sister, looked lost. She didn't meet mine, didn't greet me. Just sat beside her lawyer, a young man who flipped quickly through papers, with the nervous energy of someone who'd only recently realized his client had no case. When the judge entered, everything shifted. Ava opened calmly, laying out the revised will, the notarization, the video footage, and the supporting documentation, financial records, timestamps, dates, and the hand-penned journal entries. The judge listened in silence. When the video of Mom played, her voice steady, eyes clear, hand resting on the table as she explained her change of heart, there were no objections. Rachel didn't even look up. She just sat there, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin, trembling line. Then it was her turn. Her lawyer's argument was weak, built on emotion, speculation, and veiled accusations that I had manipulated Mom in her final days. But the paper trail was too strong. The journal, the receipts, the deposit box. The judge stopped the testimony halfway through and leaned forward. "Miss Sinclair," he said, addressing Rachel directly, "do you have any evidence that this revised will was written under duress, or that your mother was not of sound mind when she delivered it?" Rachel's mouth opened. Nothing came out. I just know she wouldn't do this to me." The judge nodded slowly. "Emotional distress is understandable, but this court operates on documentation, not feeling." Silence. Then he turned to me. "Ms. Claire Sinclair, the court finds that the revised will is valid and legally binding. All assets will be divided according to its terms." The gavel struck once, final. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I simply nodded. Justice didn't need applause. Outside, as people filtered from the courtroom, Rachel stormed over to me. "You think this is over?" she hissed. "You think I'm just going to let you take everything?" I looked her in the eye for the first time in weeks. "I'm not taking everything, Rachel. I'm taking what was mine to begin with. You manipulated her. She saw you for who you are. She was dying, Claire. And in her dying clarity, she chose the truth." Rachel let out a sound, half laugh, half sob. "You're so smug. You think you've won because you got her stuff?" "No," I said quietly. "I won because she finally saw me." She flinched. And then I added, calmly, "And you lost, because you never believed she would." She went pale. I walked away, Ava beside me, my heels steady on the pavement. Each step felt like reclaiming something I hadn't even realized I'd surrendered. My voice, my right to be included, my place in the family I'd been written out of. 3 days later, I received a call from Ava. "You may want to sit down," she said. I was at the kitchen table again, the same spot where I'd opened Mom's letter. "There's one last document," she said. "It's not from the estate. It's a disclosure from your mother's financial advisor. It came late. Something she requested remained confidential until the probate was complete." "What kind of document?" "It's a transfer." Ava paused. "Claire, your mother left you an education fund. Not for you. For your future child." I froze. "What?" "She created it 10 years ago, quietly. It's grown into a sizable amount. She named you sole trustee. There's a letter with it. You'll want to read it." Later that evening, I did. It was short. "Claire, I always knew you'd be the kind of mother who gave more than she got. This is to make sure your child never has to wonder if they're seen. I learned that from you. Love. Always. Mom." That night, I wept. Not out of sorrow, but because it was the first time I believed, truly believed, that I hadn't loved in vain. Mom had seen everything. And Rachel, she didn't just lose the house or the accounts or the ring, she lost the story. Because from now on, the world wouldn't remember her as the daughter who got everything. It would remember her as the one who screamed. When the truth was finally read aloud, if grief is the weight of love with nowhere to go, then what do you call the moment you realize some of that love had been misdirected all along? In the days after the court ruling, I found myself haunted by that question. Not because I was angry, not even because I was relieved, because I was finally free to admit the truth. I had spent most of my life mourning a relationship that never really existed. Rachel and I weren't estranged because of time or distance or bad luck. We were estranged because she needed me small to feel big, and I kept obliging her to hold the family together. I stopped doing that the moment I walked out of the courtroom. But endings, real endings, don't come in big courtroom gavel slams. They come in quieter moments, like the one that came 2 weeks later, when I returned to Mom's house to begin sorting through her things. It was still technically both of ours now, per the revised will. But Rachel hadn't set foot on the property since the ruling. No surprise. She'd never been much for the hard parts of closure. I brought trash bags, boxes, gloves, everything you bring when you're ready to unearth history and grief in equal measure. I started in the study. It still smelled like her. Not perfume, not food, just Mom. The old books, the cedar desk, the faint lavender she used to rub on her wrists. The room hadn't changed much since I was a kid. The framed photo of me and Rachel from the 4th grade spelling bee still sat on the bookshelf. I remember that day. I'd lost. She'd won. Mom had taken us both for ice cream, but only posted Rachel's ribbon to the fridge. Funny what stays in your bones. I worked slowly, methodically, journals, notebooks, legal pads with Mom's scratchy grocery lists, and thoughts she never shared aloud. I found utility bills and Christmas cards, and, under one pile, a cassette tape, labeled simply, Claire, I'll play me when you're ready. I didn't even know Mom still owned a cassette recorder. I found it in the back of the linen closet, right where she always kept old batteries and light bulbs. I plugged it in, slid in the tape, and pressed play. Her voice crackled through like a ghost from the other side of the world. Hi, honey. If you're hearing this, then I've already made the choice to be braver with my truth than I was in life. I didn't know how to love both of you fairly. That's the truth. It wasn't about favoritism, not really. It was fear. Rachel needed me in a way that consumed me. And you never asked for anything. You were so self-sufficient, so good. Too good. I took advantage of that. But I saw you, Claire. Every time you held my hand. Every time you stayed up through the night. Every time you gave without needing applause. I saw you, and I want you to know something that matters more than any will or courtroom. You are not invisible. You never were. I just looked in the wrong direction for too long. My chest cracked open. I hadn't realized how badly I needed to hear that. I hope you forgive me. I hope you live your life fully. And I hope you know that quiet strength is still strength. It built this family when I couldn't. The tape ended in silence. I stayed there in that silence, holding the machine in my lap, tears sliding down my cheeks. Not out of bitterness, but out of something deeper. Recognition. My mother had finally said the words I'd been waiting to hear my whole life. Not in a hug, not in a Christmas gift, not in a hollow, I'm proud of you, at a graduation. But in this, raw, honest, and utterly unfiltered. In the days that followed, I kept discovering more. Small gestures left just for me. A pressed flower from our daffodil garden bookmarked in her Bible. A cookbook with post-it notes on all my favorite childhood meals. A card addressed simply, to the daughter who stayed. I gathered these things. Not like trophies, but like truths I'd finally been given permission to hold. And then, something unexpected happened. Rachel emailed. No subject line, no greeting, just a single sentence. Did you know about the trust she set up for your kid? I didn't reply. Not because I was being cruel, but because I didn't owe her any more explanations. I had spent my life trying to be heard, trying to be seen, trying to justify my place in a family that taught me to measure love in crumbs. Now I knew better. Love wasn't in appearances. It wasn't in grand gestures or party-hosted will readings. It was in the small, steady things. Like a woman recording a tape late at night to say sorry the only way she knew how. Like a sealed envelope passed hand to hand by a lawyer who understood its weight. Like a daughter who stopped waiting for applause and started building her own damn stage. Rachel could scream. She could contest, deflect, rewrite history in her own head. But the real story had already been told. And this time, it had my name on it. The strange thing about finally being seen is realizing how long you've been squinting into the dark, trying to prove you're standing there at all. After everything, court dates, whispered judgments, that final tape, I thought I'd feel victorious, vindicated, maybe even triumphant. But what I actually felt was calm. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't trying to earn space at a table that was always half set. I had my own. The house sold faster than I expected. The market was strong, and Rachel wanted out, probably to save face more than anything. She didn't attend the closing. I signed a loan, handed over the keys, and walked out with my half in full. Clean. Done. But there was one thing left in the house I hadn't been able to throw away. One small item I tucked into my glove compartment the day I started packing. Dad's old watch. It didn't work anymore. The face was cracked. The leather band stiff with age. But when I held it in my hand, I remembered how it used to sit on his nightstand beside the lamp I wasn't allowed to touch. When he left us, I was 6. Rachel was 8. Mom never talked about it much, only said he wasn't the man she thought he was. That he'd disappeared with more than just the checkbook. I asked her once if he ever tried to come back. No, she said, but you didn't miss much. That watch was the only thing he left behind. I always thought Mom kept it for Rachel, her reminder of what love costs when you give it too freely. But maybe it was for both of us. A symbol of time stolen. Time survived. I slipped it onto my wrist. It still didn't tick, but it belonged to me now. 2 months after the dust had settled, I found myself standing in the nursery aisle at a home goods store, holding a tiny knitted blanket in my hand, soft, yellow, gender neutral. I wasn't pregnant, not yet, but I was trying, alone, by choice. After all that had happened, the idea of building a family from scratch, not one inherited, not one distorted by old rules and favoritism, felt sacred. It wasn't something I wanted to outsource, not anymore. I was working again. I'd gone back to financial consulting. My own clients this time, on my own terms. It felt good, empowering. Every check had my name on it, no one else's. I was still meeting with Ava occasionally, wrapping up estate logistics. At our last meeting, she smiled and said, "You know, Claire, some people fall apart after family feuds like this. But you stitched yourself back together mid-collapse." I thanked her, but the truth was, I didn't stitch myself back together. I just stopped handing the needle to people who never planned to sew me into the picture in the first place. Rachel never spoke to me again. Not after the trust fund, not after the court ruling, not after she tried to demand a share of the journal entries, claiming they were defamatory. Her attorney dropped her. She moved out of state last I heard. Someone said she was trying to start a podcast. Something about healing from narcissistic abuse. The irony wasn't lost on me. But I didn't laugh. I didn't even judge. Some people need an audience to feel whole. I just needed the truth. I donated most of Mom's furniture, but kept 3 things. Her worn cookbook, her daffodil bulbs wrapped in newspaper, and a voicemail she left me 2 years ago. It had no significance then. She was calling to remind me to get my oil changed before winter. But at the end of it, before she hung up, she said something she rarely did. "You're a good daughter, Claire. I hope you know that." No, I listen to it now and then. Not because I need reassurance, but because it reminds me that love, real love, is often quiet, awkward, late, but real all the same. In the beginning, I thought this story was about what Rachel stole. But standing here now, at the edge of my new life, I know better. This story is about what she could never take. My dignity, my worth, my mother's final word. There was no dramatic final showdown, no slamming doors, no last-minute apology text from Rachel. Just quiet. And in that quiet, I found something I'd never had before. Room to breathe. I moved into a new apartment, nothing extravagant, but full of sunlight. Plants thrived on every windowsill. I painted the walls soft shades of green and ivory. Colors Mom used to say reminded her of spring. Every room had something that told the truth of who I was now. The cookbook, dog-eared and flour-dusted, sat on my kitchen shelf. The cracked watch lay in a dish on my dresser, a reminder not of absence, but of resilience. On the mantel was a photo of me and Mom. Not a staged portrait, just a candid from a Sunday afternoon when we were planting daffodils. Our hands were muddy, our hair windblown, and we were laughing. That picture had never made it to Rachel's funeral photo board, but it had made it home with me. I'd always thought healing would feel like victory, like standing over the ruins of something broken with a sword raised high. But it didn't. It felt like making pancakes for myself on a Sunday morning and realizing I didn't care that no one else was around to eat them. It felt like waking up in silence and not needing to fill it with someone else's validation. It felt like returning home from the grocery store and finding daffodils blooming in the clay pots I had placed on the balcony, the ones I'd nearly forgotten I planted. The inheritance, in the end, wasn't just money, it was liberation. It was the final unraveling of a narrative I never agreed to, the one where I was the lesser daughter, the helper, the afterthought. Mom saw that too. In her final months, she pulled the threads loose, slowly, carefully, even if it took her until the very end. The truth is, she wasn't a perfect mother, but she tried to make it right. And that meant more to me than anything she could have written into a will. As for Rachel, I let her go. I stopped checking her social media, stopped wondering whether she'd ever see things clearly, whether she'd wake up one day and feel shame or regret. That was her path now, not mine. Letting go doesn't always mean forgiving. Sometimes it means deciding that you deserve peace more than you deserve an apology. The week the trust was finalized, I took a long walk to the park Mom loved. I carried with me a small tin filled with daffodil seeds and a note in her handwriting that simply said, "Grow what lasts." I found a quiet corner away from the path near a bench with peeling green paint, and I planted them. Just a few. Enough to come back next spring and remind me that things buried don't always stay buried. They can bloom. Before I left, I pressed my hand into the dirt, closed my eyes, breathed. "I saw you too, Mom," I whispered, even when it hurt. Then I stood up and walked home, sunlight on my shoulders, something warm in my chest. Not triumph, not revenge, just me, whole, seen, and finally free.